Hey Riverside students, thanks so much for joining us tonight. We have so much to celebrate. Last week we did our kickoff and it was awesome, and we have a little highlight video, so check this out.
I'm Adam.
I'm Haley. And I'm Trish. And we're going to do our shout-outs! Individually, but all together. Cut it. What are they called?
Are you recording this?
I forgot what I was supposed to say. No! It's not me today! You better not be recording that.
Alright, this shout-out is for Ben Reed for being an awesome small group leader. Yeah, Ben!
Daniel Mouse wants to give a shout out to Joshua Mouse for being awesome. And what a great brother.
This shout-out comes from Scarlett to Layla Bilbin, and she wants to say, Layla Bilbin, you are a great person. Way to be, Layla.
Charlotte says, shout out to Jen Chorus for always being here every day and getting us ready for worship. Good job, Jen.
This shout out goes out to Christy Secor. Christy Secor, thank you for being such an awesome leader during COVID. You were at every single Zoom meeting for your students, and you're working as an essential leader during the entire time. Way to go, Christy.
Alright, this shout out is from Izzy. This one is to Kamine. Kamine? Hey Kamine, thanks for always thinking on the positive side.
That was great, that was awesome.
Bro, for being
Man, those shout-outs were awesome, and there will be more shout-outs to come later on this summer, but we want to continue to celebrate one more thing before our message, so check this out.
Hey Riverside students, this is just a real quick fun thing that we get to do. Often happens this time of year. We have had amazing leaders with us that continue to bless us, and one of those leaders has been our intern, one of our interns actually, Tyler. Tyler is getting ready for a new transition in life. I'll let him tell you about that in just a minute, but I just want to say thank you to him personally, and thank you for all of you who have made Tyler feel at home over this last year. He was Scooby-Doo in our Freaky Fun Night thing. He's helped plan our dodgeball tournament. He's had a lot of really instrumental roles. He's been a small group leader. He's been on stage. And all of those things have been to prepare him as he's a ministry student for what it means for him to go into ministry in a different capacity moving forward. So as excited as we are to have kind of held on to him, we also are excited to see what God does next in this phase of life. I'll let Tyler take it away.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's your friendly neighborhood Tyler. I just wanted to take a second and let each and every single one of you know how much I appreciate you. Whether you're a volunteer or you're a student, your experiences have really impacted my outlook on ministry and in life in this season that I've been here. And that's just it. Right now I'm heading into a transitional season. I'm getting married this next month. I just graduated. There's all kinds of crazy and exciting things that are happening in life. And ultimately, me and my fiance, my soon-to-be wife, we're looking to partner with ministries in the Wright County area. And we're super excited just what God's doing next. So yeah, thanks to Ben Montgomery for throwing me in the snowbank. Thanks to Luke for his bellowing voice when I first got here on a Sunday. Thanks to Ava and Janelle and Joe and Lexi for all the fun memories over Christmas production. And thanks to Pastor Tony and just the Riverside student staff in particular for coming alongside of me. I'm excited to see what God does next. Thanks, guys.
Riverside students, I just added a question for you. Have you ever said the phrase, I don't care? Like, I don't care, it's not my problem, or, hey, what do you want to do today? And you say, I don't care, you know? But what if instead you started saying, I get to care? Or maybe not, maybe that would be odd to say, I get to care. Maybe it's more of thinking of that reality that you get to care. What would change in your life? What would change in other people's life? What would the impact be in other people's life? You see, this summer, we are talking about get-tos. We're going to focus on, because the reality is we focus way too much on what we don't get to do. But this summer, we get to focus on what we get to do. Tonight, I want to talk to you about the reality that we get to care. We get to care. Let me ask you a question, and you can talk about this in your group, or you can, if you're watching online, you can maybe comment. But what does it look like to care? Like, what does it look like to really care? Like tangibly, like what does it look like to care? I want to tell you a story while you're thinking of that. My cousin lived in upper Duluth area, just past there, up in the Grand Marais area, Beaver Bay area. And I remember a time where he was just having a bad time. Like, he was just going through life, and it was rough for him. It was hard for him. And I remember thinking to myself, how can I care for him? Like, he's 4 hours away from me, and yet all I can do is text message him. And the reality was, he was really feeling depressed in all of this, in this time, based on what was going on in his life. And a buddy of mine and I, we decided that we would go and visit my cousin Zach. We go and visit him. And it was an amazing opportunity to be able to care for him in a way that not many people could, or not many people maybe would. And I remember while we were hanging out, like, we laughed together, we smiled together, we cried together, and we talked about things that mattered. And I remember leaving that moment, leaving him, and I remember him and us just talking and saying, man, this was just so good for us just to get together. He's like, man, I just needed this so badly right now in my life. And it was just a moment to be able to come around my cousin who was going through some hard stuff in his life and to care for him.
So now you might be asking, Clayton, why are you, or maybe you don't realize this, but maybe you're asking, why are you on top of a roof right now? What does this have to do with caring? Well, Jesus talks about this, so the Bible talks about this in Luke chapter 5, verses 17 through 26. And I want to read it to you. It's about Jesus healing a paralyzed man. And I want you to listen to what happens here. Check it out. Luke chapter 5, verse 17 through 26. One day while Jesus was teaching, some Pharisees and teachers of religious law were sitting nearby. And the Lord's healing power was strongly on Jesus and with Jesus. Some men came carrying a paralyzed man on a sleeping mat. They tried to take him inside to see Jesus, but they couldn't reach him because of the crowd. So they went up to the roof and took off some tiles. Then they lowered the sick man on his mat down into the crowd right in front of Jesus. Seeing their faith, Jesus said to the man, "Young man, your sins are forgiven." But the Pharisees and teachers of religious law said to themselves, "Who does he think he is? That's blasphemy. Only God can forgive sins." Now Jesus knew what they were thinking, so he asked them, "Why do you question this in your hearts? Is it easier to say your sins are forgiven or stand up and walk? So I'll prove to you that the Son of Man has the authority on earth to forgive sins." Then Jesus turned to the paralyzed man and said, "Stand up, pick up your mat, and go home." And immediately, as everyone watched, the man jumped up, picked up his mat, and went home praising God. Everyone was gripped with great wonder and awe, and they praised God, exclaiming, "We have seen amazing things today. We have seen amazing things today." You know what's so interesting? When we care about people, you know what happens? We get to see amazing things happen. Maybe not immediately, but you will see amazing things happen when you start caring for people. Particularly, in this instance, we have some guys who see a paralyzed man, and for a reason, they care enough to bring him to Jesus. And they tried to go through the crowd, but they couldn't make it through the crowd carrying him. So they came up with a crazy idea, right? And you've heard this story, but they came up with a crazy idea to go to the roof, rip open the roof, and lower the man down in front of Jesus. I mean, that's if that's not caring for somebody, I don't know what is. I mean, they went the extra mile. They had determination. They had intentionality. They had love for this guy. So much so that they're like, man, we got to bring this guy to Jesus because Jesus can heal him. And they believed it. Riverside students, did you know that you are capable of bringing people to Jesus? That you are capable of seeing amazing things happen because Jesus works in and through you? If you choose to care for others, like these men cared for this paralyzed man? You might be asking, so what does it take though? Well, look at what those guys did. I mean, it takes intentionality to care. They had to be intentional to help this guy. They saw the problem. They saw the situation, which was the paralyzed man who was paralyzed. And then they took him to Jesus. So it takes intentionality. It takes determination. They saw him. They were intentional about seeing him and about noticing him. And then they were determined to bring him to Jesus. And they tried the easy way, right? They tried the easy way of just bringing him through the crowd. And yet they couldn't. So they were determined. And so they did whatever it took to bring him to Jesus, to care enough. And you know what that is? It's the third thing that it takes to care for somebody. Love. You see, love causes you to do some crazy things in life. And when you care with a love of Jesus, it won't matter what's in your way. You're going to make sure that you bring those people to Jesus. Another story of mine, I had a buddy of mine who was struggling with some inappropriate stuff in his life. And this struggle was very real in his life. And I remember us talking about it one night. We were talking about this struggle. and how he just wanted to get rid of this stuff. And he says, I know exactly where that stuff is at home. And now you see, we were probably a good 4 to 5 hours away from his house. And I remember telling him, I said, hey, let's take care of it. He's like, what do you mean? I said, let's go and take care of it. Let's do something crazy. Let's go take care of it and let's burn that garbage. He's like, right now? Yeah, right now. Let's go. And now, the reason why he was questioning all this is because it was like dinner time right now. It was about 5 o'clock at night. And he's like, we would have to drive like 4 or 5 hours to get to my house. And I said, I don't care. Let's take care of this tonight. Let's do it. He's like, all right. So we get into his truck and we drive 5 hours through the night to get to his house, dig up all of the inappropriate stuff and garbage that he had hidden away in his room. We took it, and I remember him looking at it and going, man, this is so difficult. He's like, don't worry. I'm here with you, man. I'm gonna help you with this. We're gonna do this together. I get it. And so we went outside, made a fire, we prayed, and we prayed together, and we threw that stuff, that inappropriate stuff, that garbage into the fire and watched it burn. And we praised Jesus for the victory in that moment. And you know what? It was crazy. You know what? It took intentionality, it took determination, and it took love from my friend for us to do that together, to care enough. Riverside students, we get to care for people. That's so important, even especially now with what's going on in our world, what's going on in our lives with racial injustice and everything in between and the crazy that we're going on. We get to do something and we get to care. How could you care intentionally? How could you care with determination? And how could you care with love in the situation that you're in and the people that are around you? How could you bring them to Jesus? Like these men brought the paralyzed man to Jesus. How can you bring people to Jesus, to care enough to bring people to Jesus, to see real life change happen? And if you remember, it said at the end of that, it said this, check it out. Remember, it said, we have seen amazing things today. Riverside students, if we care enough for people, and we care the way that Jesus calls us to, we will see amazing things happen today. I'm talking about right now, today, as you're watching this, and tomorrow, as you think about it, there are people in your life that you can care for the way God is calling you to. So, who do you know that you could bring to Jesus, that you could care enough to bring to Jesus and be caring with intentionality, determination, and love? Because Riverside students, we get to care.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you, we live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you, God. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are. Fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside